Okay, we are on a roll. We're going to end up with the cosine squared. Okay, so that goes way down here. Equals cosine squared, and I'm writing it way down here. That's what you're going to end up with. Okay, so I'm going to try to put everything. Now, you cannot separate these because you have a plus sign right here. You can only separate if you have one thing, or if you're going to, you can't separate. And plus, you're multiplying on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the cosecant of x. If you go over here, the cosecant of x is 1 over the sine. So I am going to make this 1 over the sine of x times the cosine of x over 1. So that just stays like that. And then the tangent of x is going to be, if you go over here, the tangent of x is the sine over the cosine. Sine over the cosine. The cotangent, you go over here, is the cosine over the sine. So I'm going to replace the cotangent with the cosine over the sine. Do not be sloppy. Don't forget the variable in there. Okay? So then the top is the cosine of x over the sine of x. And then the bottom, you have a big mess. So on the bottom, I'm going to find the common denominator, which again is cosine sine. So I'm going to find the common denominator, which is cosine of x times the sine of x. You multiply the two bottom ones. And so what's missing from the cosine? The cosine is missing the sine. So I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by the sine of x. So sine times sine is sine of x squared. Plus, what's missing from that one? It's missing the cosine. So I'm going to put cosine of x times the cosine of x. Cosine times cosine is cosine squared of x. Okay, so now I'm going to replace the cosine sine squared plus cosine squared right here. Sine squared plus cosine squared is 1. So I'm going to replace that with the 1. So right now you have cosine of x over the sine of x. Notice that I haven't done anything to that lately, which is okay. And then I'm going to put 1 over cosine of x times the sine of x. Okay, so I should have done it way downer, but that's what we want to end up with. Okay, so now I'm going to multiply by the, so a fraction divided by a fraction is you multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator. So let's just say you have 3/5 over here, memory lane in 3rd grade. 3/5 divided by 2/3. You're going to multiply by the reciprocal. The reciprocal of that is 3 over 2. So then that's going to be 3 times 3 is 9, and 5 times 2 is 10. And these cancel out. Okay, that's the same concept you're doing over here. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is cosine x sine x over 1. So cosine x sine x over 1. So these on the bottom cancel out. You don't have a bottom part anymore. Actually, I'm not going to put it there. So then this sine of x cancels with that sine of x, and then you're left with cosine cosine. Cosine squared of x over 1. And cosine squared of x is just equal to what you want to end up with. Cosine squared of x. That's the right-hand side. You're done. Voila.